what happens when a person dies who's lost? A lost soul's journey. What happens um, in the afterlife? Say afterlife. There's no such thing as afterlife. A person never dies. Everybody lives forever, one place or another. That is true. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, he says in Jonah, we're going to look at Jonah, if I can keep up with all this. Jonah 2, verse 2, Jonah says, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell, okay, cried I. So he went to hell. He went to the belly of it, obviously. The Bible, we don't say has errors in it. Otherwise, you'd say that was an error. And thou heardest my voice. In Matthew 12, verse 40, Jesus gives you the cross reference, applying it to himself. He says, as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So there we find that Jonah's body was in the whale, but his soul was in hell. That Jesus identifies as being in the heart of the earth. Jesus' body, of course, went to the grave. They wrapped it and put it in the tomb. But obviously, the soul went somewhere else. It went to hell and deposited our sin. So we'll find out what happens to a man who's lost in their final hours. Amos 9, verse 2. Amos 9, verse 2. He says, though thou dig into hell, that is, if you had a shovel, a backhoe with a big enough drop on it, you could dig down deep enough, you would end up in hell. That's where it is, under the surface of the earth. Dig into hell. Then shall mine hand take them, though they, watch this, climb up to heaven. Thence will I bring them down. Notice the entrance to hell is connected to heaven. They're right at the same door. You approach the same hallway to get to either heaven or to hell. And we'll follow this through. I know that sounds far-fetched right now.
Makes sense in a way because it was that place. Okay, there was Lazarus, that one man who's like, can he just bring me some water or something? And they saw each other and there was a gulf in between.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Exodus 15. Exodus 15 is a picture of the devil. Exodus 15, verse 6. We're going to go verse 6 to 13, and I'm going to jump through these things. In verse 6, he says, thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces. Notice the definite article, the enemy, specifically Pharaoh. The bigger picture here is the Antichrist, the devil himself. Verse 7, he says, thy wrath which consumed them as stubble. Consumed, that's like burn up. Verse 8, with a blast of thy nostrils. Blast is like the wind blast. Verse 10, thou didst blow with thy wind. They sank as lead. Why would they need to sink? They were already on the bottom. They sank somewhere else. Verse 12, the earth swallowed them. The enemy is swallowed here by the earth. Okay, where are they going? To the heart of the earth. Verse 13, now change in scene. The people which thou hast redeemed, thou hast guided into thy holy habitation. So we know what happened with the children of Israel crossing the Red Sea. The enemy comes across right behind them, and they can see them crossing over into Canaan. And that's what they're after. But before they can get there, God opens the earth and swallows them, drops them down in, and they sink in. Look at slide it move. Look at the next one is that I didn't give y'all that. I'm not good at this. Yeah, I know I need him tonight. Job 41, and now I've got my slides off. Let's see if I can make that work.
We called him.
Call David. Job 41, verse 20. Of course, this is about Leviathan, the devil again. Verse 20, nostrils goeth smoke. What comes out of your nostrils? As out of a seething pot or cauldron. It's a boiling witch's brew. The nostrils is like wind. He says, the famous saying is this, where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, you don't get something boiling unless you get it hot. The way you get it hot is you put a fire under. Verse 31, he maketh the deep, now the deep there's the second heaven, to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. That second heaven up there is boiling. It's moving. He says, verse 32, he maketh a path to shine after him. We talked about that. The stars twinkling in the heavens and the galaxies up there. As he's moving around up there, it's not light refracting from different stars and other planets. It's the devil moving And when he moves, it causes a disturbance in the heaven. David says that it's all out of course. And that's because something up there is shaking things up. Look at Jeremiah. Yeah, Jeremiah. Jeremiah 1. Jeremiah 1, verse 13. God's talking to Jeremiah. He says, "What seest thou?" And I said, "I see a seething pot." Same terminology thereof is toward the north. That is, the top of the pot faces north. If he's looking at the deep, the heavens, the face that he's talking about facing the north is true north. That's the throne of God. That's so right under the throne of God is this. Look at verse 14. Out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. Sure will, that'll be the tribulation. The Antichrist is going to come down from there. He gets kicked out. It says there's no place found for him in heaven. He gets kicked out. In Jeremiah 10, verse 22, he says, "Behold, the noise of the brood is come, and a great commotion out of the north country. The cities of Judah desolate, and a den of dragons." Now, I know you can try to apply that to this earth because it said Jerusalem or said Judah. You can try to say that that happened historically, but no, there was no den of dragons there. There's going to be, when this gets fulfilled, a literal den of dragons. Ezekiel 24, verse 3. "And utter a parable unto the rebellious house, and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, set on a pot, set it on, and also pour water into it." He's giving them a picture of that second heaven, the place where Lucifer's playing. And we're going to see that's where, obviously, a lost person is going to have to go. And here's how they get there. Jonah 2, verse 5. Jonah says, "The waters compass me about, even to the soul." So his soul got into that water up there. "The depths closed me round about. The weeds were wrapped about my head." Now, something is going on where there's weeds and turbulence, and he's getting into this stuff that's wrapping around his head. That's not his physical head. He said it was his soul. So while his body's in the whale, just like Jesus' body was in the grave, his soul is somewhere else. It's up there in the second heaven. And a whirlwind has taken him out. This is the way God does it. 2 Kings 2, verse 1. "And it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind." That's what he uses, a whirlwind. Verse 11, he says, "And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire," something supernatural, "and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven." God takes him out, sucks him out. Look at it in Job 38, verse 1. "Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said," that's where God is. He's talking to him out of the whirlwind. And it's a time of trouble. That's a turbulent event. It's all through the book of Job. Look at chapter 40. Chapter 40, verse 6. "Then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind and said," so forth, so on. That's how he's speaking to him. That throne is set on a throne of glass. Under it is a vast ocean. We call it the deep, or the Bible calls it the deep. And that deep is not stationary. It's moving. It's turbulent. And God sends a whirlwind down from that thing. It's like a water spout. It's a whirlwind of water. Look at it in Psalm 1, verse 4. He says, "The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff, which what? The wind driveth away." He's using a wind, a whirl. "The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies." Yeah, they do. But here's the wicked. This is who he's talking about. Look at, where am I? Psalm 58, verse 3. Now go to verse 4. "Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They're like a deaf adder that stoppeth her ear." Now, isn't that a good description of the devil? Sure. He's that great red dragon, the serpent. They're like their father. When we get to heaven, we'll be like our Father, Jesus Christ. But now that he's identified the wicked as being like this serpent, now, according to Job, that serpent is playing up there in the second heaven, in the great deep. Look at it in Psalm, drop down to verse 6. "Break their teeth, O God, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Lord. Let them melt away as waters which run continually when he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be cut in pieces. Okay, so here, this is God's destruction of the wicked. Now, it's not just one person. This is not identifying the Antichrist. This is identifying his children. The young lions, the wicked here are his children, his people that he's convinced to stay lost. Look at verse 9. Before your pots can fill the thorn, he shall take them away with a whirl, both living and in his wrath. He sucks them out by a whirlwind when he gets mad. Now, this is the first step before they land in heaven, is they get sucked out. The soul is sucked out in a whirlwind to heaven. That's Psalm 58, verse 9. Did I say 58? Yeah, 58, verse 3 and 4, 6 and 7, and verse 9. And Proverbs 1:27. And there's so many times it happens in Proverbs, I did not give you all of them. There's a lot of verses I skipped that I did not put in here, but I gave you enough. Proverbs 1, verse 27. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirl. When distresses and anguish come upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. This is God destroying a person. He does it with a whirlwind again. Look at it in chapter 10, verse 25. As the whirlwind passeth, so is the wicked no more. He takes the wicked and sucks that soul out with the whirlwind, and then the next step is hell, and they will be no more. But the righteous is an everlasting fountain. Look at it in, Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40, verse 24. They shall not be planted, yea, they shall not be sown, yea, their stock shall not take root in the earth, and he shall blow upon them, and they shall wither, and the whirlwind shall take them away as stubble. This is God destroying people. This is how he does it. When a lost person dies, the whirlwind picks him up. He doesn't just sink into hell. Whirlwind takes him up there so he can meet his king, the devil. And then that whirlwind is the brute is how he said it in another passage, a brute.
You're talking about the soul.
Yeah, the soul. All right, we're in Isaiah. Go to chapter 41. Chapter 41, verse 15. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument, having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains and beat them small, and shalt make the hills as chaff. That is the refuge, the stuff we don't want. Thou shalt fan them with and the fan shall carry them away, and the whirlwind shall scatter them, and and thou shalt rejoice in the Lord, and shalt glory in the Holy One of Israel. Over and over, that fan is used. He'll fan them. You find it in several places. I didn't give you all the references for fan, but you can look up fan. That's God's. What you do with a wheat is you take the pestle and you beat it, and then it cracks, and the good part comes out the kernel. And then you throw it up in the air, and the kernel will come to the ground. But when you throw it up in the air, the light part, the part that came off the husk, flies away. That's the chaff. That's what's going to happen here. He's going to do this, and he's going to be using wind, whirlwind. He said, look at it in chapter 66. Chapter 66. Chapter 66 is the end of the story. Not for us, but 66, verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. Like he came and picked up Elijah with the chariots of fire. That's what he's going to come back and destroy with when he gets ready to come back. But he's using that whirlwind. Get in Jeremiah 23:19. Jeremiah 23:19. Behold, a whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a grievous whirlwind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. So that lost person dies, something comes down and sucks that soul out. The whirlwind takes him up there to where his hero is. Jeremiah 30, verse 23. Jeremiah 30, verse 23. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain on the head of the wicked. We're given just the opposite. If you're saved, Your destiny is to be ever with the Lord. In his presence is fullness of joy. The lost is going to be just the opposite. From the second he closes his eyes in death, pain strikes, and it never ceases for eternity. Get it in chapter, chapter 30, verse 23. Look at Hosea. Hosea 8.
Just can't stay out of it.
Can't get out of it. I have some Hosea. It's like butter or salt. You need a little bit of it. A little bit of everything.
Funny you call Hosea butter.
Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea. Hosea 8, verse 7. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the world. It hath no stalk, the bud shall yield no meal. If so be it yield, the strangers shall swallow it up. This is God in the last day destroying nations and people, and specifically his people who've rebelled against him. But it's the same for any lost man. Literal whirlwind is going to fall on him and take him where he don't want to go. Okay, let's take the next step. So before this soul in the whirlwind that's up there with the devil ends in hell, we know he's going to sink there like lead. Before he does that, he's looking over at the holy temple. His eyes talk about insult being added to injury. This is God gives him a vision of what he could have had, and then he disappears forever into hell.
When he got to see, he didn't get to go into the front.
Yes. Yep. Look at it in Jonah 2. Jonah 2. He said, I'm going to speak. And I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet will I look again toward thy holy temple. It was something he could see. We know this is his soul. We had in Psalm 69. Psalm 69:1. Save me, O God, for the waters are come in unto my soul. Sounds like Jonah. I sink in deep mire where there is no standing. I'm come into deep waters where the floods overflow me. I'm weary of my crying. My throat is dried, mine eyes fail, while I wait for my God. They that hate me without cause are more than the hairs of my head. They that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully, are mine. Then I restored that which I took not away. Who's this all about? This is a passage about Jesus Christ. Now, when is it about Jesus Christ? It's about Jesus Christ on the cross. When he's taken the sin of the world. What happens when a man has a sin that's unpaid? He has to go where sin dwells. So that's what Jesus does. He takes this. Now he didn't do any sin, so it's not really his responsibility. He's the carrier of sin, the scapegoat. Look at it in John chapter 15. I'll come back to Psalm, but John 15, and will be verse 25. But this cometh to pass that the word might be fulfilled that is written in their law. They hated me without a cause. This is what we're reading of in Psalm 69, is the people who hated him. He said that they were mightier than he. Psalm 69, verse 4. They that hate me without a cause. Okay, that's not David, that's Jesus Christ. Look down at verse 9, Psalm 69, verse 9. For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me. We know that's a reference to Jesus Christ, so that's where you are in the passage. But it's a reference to Christ when he's on the cross, and when he's taking our sin to hell. And this is how it happens. Look at it in Psalm 140. Psalm 146, verse 9. The Lord preserveth the stranger. He revileth the fatherless and widow. He relieveth the fatherless and widow. The way of the wicked he turneth upside down. Now, you put all this together, and what I think you've got here is when a person dies, the soul gets sucked out by a whirlwind from God. And that whirlwind is beating and battering him in the second heaven. And he's upside down when all this mess is happening. It'd be bad enough if you were right side up, but you're upside down. Then he looks over and he can see into perfect peace and pleasure and happiness, the temple of God. Then he sinks headfirst into hell. The earth opens and swallows him up. All right, that's on that happy note. We'll say we've studied that topic. Any questions? This is not a subject that people talk about often, and I've never heard anybody put it all together like that. So you got something different tonight.
Pretty logical.
It's pretty straightforward. Even that's in high school, I had to do a project on Project Multiple. And some days and building. The genius one, I think it's so many feet that Russia still has open. They can work.
Yeah, Putin has to go home and sleep somewhere.
That's right.
That was the follow-up on the question about the world. And I hate to leave a subject when I've not fully covered it, so I fully covered it.